I've been wondering lately, why is Florida called Florida? And what does Florida mean? And how did it get its name? And is there more to the story than what we're normally told? We're going to unravel all that. Today on Wild Florida, we're talking about Florida. So if you grew up in Florida like I did, you probably learned that Ponce de Leon discovered Florida and then he named it. And he discovered it while he was looking for the Fountain of Youth. So here's the problem. What we learned was wrong, like totally wrong. So let's start with he discovered Florida. So I know, you're probably going, yeah, we all know Native Americans were here first. And they were, for like 25,000 years before Europeans got here. But let's pass on that. I mean, the Calusa, the Appalachee, the Tequesta, they were all here. Didn't have the Seminoles, they were in Georgia. So Ponce de Leon wasn't even one of the first Europeans here. There's evidence that since 1494, there were Europeans, specifically Spaniards, going and collecting slaves from the state of Florida. So, first part, he discovered it? No. But what he did do is he's one of the first people to be recorded for discovering Florida. So therefore, first recorded, he wins. Now let's go for the second part. He was looking for Florida because he was looking for the Fountain of Youth, or he was just looking for the Fountain of Youth and he stumbled upon Florida. Pick your choice of which one it was, but that's also incorrect. So we need to go back into some history. And I know some people, we really love the history lessons, but I know a bunch of you do. So what was Ponce de Leon doing? So let's start first with, why was he in the Caribbean looking for land? Well, it really comes back to he was a military leader who had suppressed some uprisings in Puerto Rico. So the King of Spain, King Ferdinand, goes and gives him Puerto Rico. He becomes the governor of Puerto Rico, and that's in about 1509. Now, come 1511, Diego Columbus, and yes, that is the son of Christopher Columbus, they're getting into it about who's going to go rule Puerto Rico, because Ponce de Leon's making bank. He is making a ton of money on his plantations, slave trade, crops. So he's not interested in giving up Puerto Rico. And Diego Columbus, well, his dad discovered America. You know, he's interested in taking over. So King Ferdinand gives Diego Columbus Puerto Rico. But he kind of feels bad for Ponce de Leon, and he says, you know what, if you discover other places, well, one, we know there's a place called Bohemia, and you get that. And any other lands that you discover that we don't already know about, you get those too. So this is why, but there's a catch. You've got a lot of money, so you got to go and pay for all this. So that's what Ponce de Leon was doing. He was going out and he was looking for land for him to go and take over. And he stumbled into Florida. Hooray for us. So come 1513, Ponce de Leon is going around the Caribbean, primarily northwest of Hispaniola, and he's looking for lands for him to govern, right? Because he's made a lot of money down in Puerto Rico. He can't go there. Diego Columbus has it, and now he wants to find some new lands for him to govern. Now, there aren't a lot of historical records about it. They're pretty brief, what we do have. So there's a lot more story and word of mouth about what happened versus actual facts. So what we do know is approximately March 27th, he sees some lands. A lot of people believe that's the islands of Bohemia. But come April 2nd, pretty much universally people say, April 2nd, 1513, he sees Florida and he names it La Florida. So we think he landed somewhere around St. Augustine around April. By May, he's down at Biscayne Bay. By June, he's over in Sanibel Island, the Dry Tortugas, and by October, he's back in Puerto Rico. Oh yeah, remember Puerto Rico and Diego? Well, Diego's out, because come 1514, he's governor again. But in 1515, King Ferdinand dies. And that's a problem, right? Because you've got a lot of uncharted land, and it's all about what the king thinks you own is an important piece, right? So basically, Ponce de Leon has to go back to Spain and then make sure that all his titles and the lands that he's been given by King Ferdinand get to be his still. Then that gets all settled out. 1521, the new king says, go ahead, that new land that you found, that La Florida, it's yours. And guess what? You get to colonize it. And so he tries to. He takes a whole ship of people who can go farm, and he gets there. The problem is there's about 350,000 Native Americans who aren't too interested, specifically the Calusa. You may know that name because you've heard of the Caloosahatchee River. So they go and get into battles with Ponce de Leon's group, and they wound him. He dies. He's buried in Puerto Rico. That's the end of Ponce de Leon. But what we didn't really answer is, why is it named La Florida? So let's get into it. Welcome to the mangroves. Yay. So what does that have to do with the name of Florida? Well, so why did he name Florida, Florida? Well, he actually names it La Florida. But what we do know is what Florida means. So Florida means full of flowers. Pretty easy, right? So that means this must be a land full of flowers, as you can clearly see by the total lack of flowers. Now this is really where the debate comes in. Remember I said he saw land around April 2nd. Well, if you go and look back, April 6th is Easter. In 1513, I mean, not this year. Check your calendar for what day it is. So in 1513, April 6th is Easter. So April 2nd is not a particular holiday. It's between Palm Sunday, you've got Holy Thursday, you've got Good Friday, but April 2nd's Tuesday. Wednesday. Wednesday. Okay. So here's the disagreement with historians, right? So what they think is that on April 2nd, when he starts to see new land, is that he names it La Florida because Florida, one of the ways it means, is full of flowers. Easter season is also called Pascua Florida. I probably butchered that. I'm so sorry. But because of that, people think that he was really naming it because of the pastoral Easter season, which Easter in 1513 was on April 6th. But I don't buy that, because we also know that in Spanish that the word Florida and Festival of Flowers is used for other holidays too, such as Christmas. So what made him think, I mean, he got there in Easter, so you could call it Easter Island, which would have been Isla de Pascua. Again, sorry if I butchered that. And how about Palm Sunday? I mean, why not Isla de la Palma or something? You know, again, sorry. I didn't take Spanish, which was probably a poor choice in high school. But the reality is that if you go somewhere and you go, hey, I want to name it because it's Easter, you name it Easter. If you're going to name it Isle of Flowers or La Florida, a land full of flowers, you probably saw some flowers, right? Right. So the problem is when you ask the next logical question, which is, okay, if it's the land of flowers, then what flowers did he see? What would have been the flowers that inspired the name? You know what the answer is? Well, there isn't one. Actually, what they say normally, if they don't agree with the fact that it was named after the Easter season, they say he was inspired by the verdant shores. And I'm going to call foul on that one, because if you want to go by the verdant shores, and verdant, if you look it up, it means green, lush landscapes full of greenery. Well, then wouldn't you name it Greenland? So if you would have seen these verdant shores, then wouldn't you have named it Greenland? But he didn't. He named it La Florida, and he stuck with it. Remember, he was here from late March, or maybe it was April, all the way through probably August before he started heading back to Puerto Rico, and he stuck with the name La Florida. And my contention is that it's because he was inspired by the flowers he was seeing. Now, a lot of the flowers that I've learned throughout the years is that they're small. And I can't imagine someone from Spain and who's been across the Caribbean was inspired by teeny tiny flowers. He had to have seen great flowers, big flowers, a lot of flowers to really go with the name La Florida, right? Because also the name would also tell people you're there. And so if he wants to tell people, go to La Florida, I run that, they would look for the place with all the flowers. See what I'm saying? So let's talk about the flowers of Florida, right? So because when most people think of Florida, they think of palm trees, they think of beaches, you think of theme parks, but do you think of flowers? Maybe you do. Maybe you're thinking, oh, this one, or this one, or this one. But here's the problem. None of those are from Florida. Actually, most of those aren't even from the Caribbean. So then what would he have seen? So just like Ponce de Leon, right? We probably on the shoreline would have seen a lot of mangroves, just like this. And the reality is that mangroves aren't known for their flowers. So he had to see something else. He had to see something that inspired him, right? He was going up and down the coastline of Florida. So my contention is that there had to be something on the coastline. It had to be dramatic. It had to be big enough that you noticed it. It had to be abundant enough that you went, La Florida. So what I think it is, I think it's the dune sunflower. I think that's the first flower that inspired the name. Dune sunflowers, which are native to Florida, and they can go up a little bit up the east coast of the United States. They can get up to 2 meters tall, which is 6 feet. But typically here, they're gonna be 2 to 3 feet tall, but they're gonna spread. They're gonna spread like ground cover. They're gonna go 4, 8 feet. They're gonna self-seed. So you would have a blanket. He would pull up on the shore and he would see a blanket of these yellow sunflowers all across the land and go, La Florida. And it would make sense, right? That's what I'm thinking. But is that the only flower? And you know, there's actually a lot of native flowers here in Florida. It's just most of us don't know it because we're not from here. 900 new people move here every day. So we're not familiar with the things that belong here, like sable palm. But is that the only flower? I don't think so. I know there's gotta be more, and I bet you're thinking of some too. And if you do, put them down below, because that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna continue to explore on True Florida Native, the flowers of Florida. So how do we bring back the land of flowers? How do we bring it back into our own yards? 80% of the land east of the Mississippi is privately owned, which means the best way to bring back the land of flowers is through our own yards. So start with dune sunflower, right? It likes poor soil, sandy soil, which if you've watched some of my Growing Food is Easy challenge videos, you know Florida has lots of sandy soil. And the other thing is it's great ground cover. So instead of growing grass across your yard that you spend a lot of time taking care of, why not put a native plant that's lower maintenance that the native wildlife likes to live in? But there's gotta be more. We gotta go figure this out. We gotta go find the next ones. So that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna keep looking. As a true Florida native, we have to go and find and bring back the flowers that made this state great. That when people who didn't have GPS would go to Florida and say, this must be it, this must be La Florida, because I can see it in front of me, the land of flowers. So we're going to continue on this journey. We're going to continue to go and discover the flowers that inspired the name La Florida. So if you're interested in continuing on for the journey, go ahead and like, subscribe, and ring that bell for notification. New videos each week. And let's go and figure it out. I'm Jacqueline, the Wild Floridian. I'll see you next time. Bye.